Hi, it's Matthew Cary, designated extrovert, and I'm here in the Carter Johnson Librarian Collection in the Rare Books room with Mama Vi, who has some rare books to show you today.
Well, first of all, I love the title Designated Extrovert. It just tickles my heart. But the last video we did had me in this room. Pretty much I haven't moved because it's my favorite place to be. But I was talking to you before about all of the things that are in this room. We can call it, to some extent, the heart of the collection. When I say rare books, most people have a very different perspective because it's a younger generation of leather men and women that have come out. So I wanted to explain rare. Once upon a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, quite often for a private collector of now what it is that we do, would be receiving his books from a publisher who is only printing for a very limited audience. And when I say limited, I also mean numbered. Now, this is one of my favorite books to show of early numbered presses. This is von Sacher-Masoch's Venus in Furs, but it was put out by a publishing company called Sylvan. Only 1,500 of this book were ever printed for the United States and 10 for the press. Now, Matt, you can see this book has a place for itself to be numbered. So what we have here is one of 10 press copies. We have other copies of this book in the library that begin with about number 127, and the 5 other copies go up almost to 900. But this would be an example of a numbered tome. It only went to very limited people who could afford it. This is one of the types of books we're looking for. I talked about Sylvan, but there were a number of wonderful publishers, Sylvan only being one of them, Falstaff Press, Rarity Press, etc., who published books for people who wanted to enjoy an erotic library. And they were a fairly limited group. But even in its beauty, and this is an example of one of the German pieces. This is 1934, a print company in Germany called Verlag Press. This is one of the publishing houses that Hitler was determined to shut down. Look at the beauty of the artwork. This book is 80 years old, or 80 something years old, and its print and its art is as beautiful today as it was then. But so much of publications of this ilk, look at her, isn't she gorgeous?
She is. Quick one.
Publications like this, the great German publications, because Germany was a hotbed of sexual freedom pre-World War II, were found and burned. This is the kind of thing that was burned during the Night of Broken Glass and the Night of Burned Books. So whenever a publication from pre-World War II Germany comes up for sale where someone wants to donate them, we cherish them so that ultimately we can get all of these digitized so that you can see them. Until then, you're going to have to come here.
I don't read German, but copyright 1932.
I do not sprechen Sie Deutsch, but I sprechen Sie Picture very well. And the illustrations in here are gorgeous.
They are. They really are.
Going back even farther, and I had a young scholar ask me about this one. Now, this is a classic leather-bound book. If you were a man of means and had a library that looked something like this, all of your books would be bound in the same colored leather. They would all have various water paper that would be unique to you.
Oh, wow.
And the fancier the paper, the more money you had basically to hide. But the books of your library would all be bound in the same color. It might be brown with gold. It could be green leather, burgundy leather. So that basically your science, your anthropology, your kink, all look the same so that someone who is going through your collection wouldn't know. Now, this piece is called the Obus Saducum or Obus Saducum, depending on how you pronounce it. And this is a first edition of the work of the Marquis de Sade.
Wow.
Who was it that was trying to get a hold of this? One of the members of your group said that they had a copy of this book on hold for 2 years and they still hadn't gotten it.
Magic.
And found out that it was in Grandmom's library and went, you mean all I had to do is go to Evansville? Well, yes.
There it is. I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see what we're dealing with here.
Now, I'm going to go back in time even farther before I come forward in time because I can.
We're going back in time further than this one?
Oh, much further.
Okay.
A long story. The oldest piece in the library is the 1701 Histoire de la Flatulence. It is written in archaic French. Beautiful. And when we first got it, and I stopped fainting and drooling over the book, which isn't a good thing to do for leather, and decided that I wanted to see how the book evolved to what we now know as the 1961 History of the Rod. The next book in that series is the 1863, and this is a beautiful edition.
Wow.
It is lambskin.
Oh, it's stunning to see him.
And what makes this book so rare is that someone did not remove the original etchings. The etchings in this book are actually worth more than the book is. And now they've become very valuable in Europe. And people with skill can go through very old books and remove the etching, because if you look, Matt, there's nothing printed on the other side. So the etching could be removed from the book, and you wouldn't know it was missing. And unfortunately, there are a number of sellers in Europe who are doing just that.
Look at this, the texture and this is stunning. It's like a piece of art. The binding and the cover is like a piece of art. It's beautiful.
But now as we're coming forward just a little bit in history, one of the wonderful things about the flogging texts in Europe and the flagellation craze from the late 1800s was some spectacular artwork. Now, we had talked about your man of letters. What you would get from your publisher, and I'm only going to flash this cover very briefly, lest we get censored somewhere. You would get from the publisher something called a soft wrap. It's a little different from our paperback, but it's a similar concept. And it would have a beautiful piece of art on it that would end up being what's called a frontage page, which is the page inside that faces the title page.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the way you get the book. But you then send it, remember what I said about bound in the colors of your library?
Mm-hmm.
You would then send this to your binder, who would then finish it for you. And this piece that was the cover now becomes the frontage illustration.
Wow.
And we're finding more and more of these in the pre-wrap state.
Once again, briefly.
But lest you think Grandmom only is chasing the old for this room, we're also chasing first editions of our modern writers. Sort of like this one.
One of my favorites.
From Jay Wiseman. It still has this spiral binding, which is how you know it's one of Jay's first editions.
And this would be the early where he published it.
Yes.
Before it became
Yeah.
what I own a copy of.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar, it's also a great book.
Go Jay. But in this room we also have writer's notes and writer's print and correction copies. I beg all of my writers, to save the piece that you were editing on and making your notes on and send that to me as well. We've collected the old newspapers from the New York tri-state area. Test copies and first press runs for a lot of our modern authors when they're only doing certain copies. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give a bootblack that I adore a special shout out. Matt, on the top shelf, there is a very modern, right up, put your right hand up, all the way up, right by the boots, right there. You had your hands up.
Oh.
Now, even though it looks old, it isn't. This is a compilation, and a very special one done because this book is completely done by hand by Izzy the Bootblack. And she is teaching younger bootblacks about bootblacking tradition with all of her notes, but she has also included types of leather, textures of leather, what gets used with different leathers. I have no idea if she's done more than 10 of these, but it's not always old. It's just unusual. That is what you find here in the Rare Book Room. So, wanted to give you a little bit of an explanation of this room and coming back to something that I had said, or touched on, I should say, in our first video. Most of you have heard what I think of book burning. You don't want me to get on that soapbox because I can't afford to burn out Matt's camera. But burning a modern book, while it is wrong, it's replaceable. Most of what is in this room is not replaceable. They're numbered, they're limited editions, they're here because of age, they're here because someone had tried to destroy them. And these are the books that are part of the treasures, books, magazines, newspapers, that are part of the treasures of the library, that are being saved for you. These are the voices of your ancestors. And this is the reason why half of the library's logo is Never Again Flames. So, Matt, you ready to do more exploring next time you're here?
Absolutely. And we hope to see some of you here exploring in Evansville.